Where you run from the police at? Where you ever represented hope where the hopeless at? Where you had to take an oath before you sold the sack? Dealt with all the pressure, played it like you never noticed that. Amongst it all, put yourself on the map. Turn it to a booming operation. Where your focus at? Where your 600 bins? Where your rovers at? Where your Cuban link? Where your rollie at? I would rather shoot before I run. Pressure on my shoulder when done. You should try and do what we done. Make $1 million while you young. I would rather shoot before I run. Pressure on my shoulder where it done. You should try and do what we done. Make $1 million while you young.
So if you could tell us how exactly and what deal you did to make your first $1 million.
I can tell you it's how I came up. Similar to climbing out the grave, huh? Can't be acting like a bitch trying to get saved, bruh. Get that dirt up off your shoulder, step your game up. Can't be chasing pussy, switch your ways up. Can't be f***ing off your loot, you gotta save up. So you gon' probably fail trying to play us. Streets ain't for everybody, get your grades up. Ain't about your money, you just looking for a stage, huh? And all that stunting put a in your brain, huh? Stupid, you can't fake us.
KBLA Talk 1580. Me and Miles could just listen to that song all morning. Rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle, gone but not forgotten on today, his anniversary. I'm being joined right now by attorney Jaaye Person Lynn. He's an abolitionist, born and raised in the 2nd District of LA County. He is a graduate of Hampton University, Howard University Law, and mainly practices criminal defense and civil rights through the Person Lynn law offices. Good morning, attorney Jaaye Person Lynn.
Good morning, Dominique, and thank you so much for having me on this fine morning.
Thanks for coming on. And as a true Angelino, I thought you might want to say a word or two about Nip on his anniversary.
Yes, man. First of all, 7 years has flown by. That was a different world, a pre-COVID world. But the marathon continues. The marathon burgers have expanded. The online business has expanded. The message, the children that were 12 and 13, 14 years old are now young adults and following that message and running their marathons, not getting distrayed or dismayed by the fact that they aren't where others on their marathon are, and just using that to keep going and knowing that it's a process and the success comes in the process, not just the destination. That's the greatness of the life that was Amaeus Askadom, a.k.a. Nipsey Hussle. So I'm extremely excited that his life was here and that his message still resonates. And, man, had a couple opportunities to meet him. The last time I saw him was the night after the Grammys, just a month before he passed, a little over a month before he passed. And it was a great tragedy. I remember exactly where I was leaving brunch at Brownstone Bistro when I got the news. And it was, when it first came, you didn't know who did it. You didn't know if it was about to be a war in L.A. or what happened. But I just know at the moment and the day when that casket went through the city, and I went to where I grew up on Crenshaw, Manchester, and saw the enemies, the perceived and declared enemies of the 60s standing out on that corner to show respect for that man and his life. It really moved me. I'm just trying to stay on my marathon.
Man, that parade or funeral procession that we had for Nipsey Hussle all throughout LA, never seen anything like that in my life. I mean, every set was out lining the streets. Cops were standing down. It was really kind of magical.
Yeah, it was something that, it was, and I remember in that moment, Big Boy made a statement saying, ultimately that it was in that moment. It kind of, when you walk in somebody's home who's passed away, it's kind of that eerie feeling like that's how it was all over L.A. But we rose, we rise, we keep going. There's many artists that got the stage and a platform from that are still going, not just in music, but in other forms of entrepreneurial endeavors. And that's the real win. And, if he really was Tupac of his generation, in more ways than one.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to Paul Lee's wife and daughters who are listening. Welcome to the KBLA delegation and all of our delegates in the chat
My
room
Windsor
on
Hills
YouTube.
classmates.
Okay. Keeping it real LA here. There's so much going on right now that use some legal analysis, although I think you usually bring me back to the reality that today's law is not yesterday's law. I mean, we are currently in what seems to be another completely illegal war.
One thing I learned about international law, I did a study abroad in South Africa, and we had a constitutional law course, a business tax course, like an international tax law course, and then an international law course. And we only had to do two of the courses. And after about the second day, I ended up dropping the international law course because I realized I didn't want to take extra time while in South Africa to sit in the classroom discussing, thoughts that people have that aren't going to be enforced, because the golden rule about the law is who has the gold rules, and the law is made by those in power. So how can you, tell a cop that it's illegal to pull me out of my car and put a gun to my head? Even if it is deemed to be illegal, that's not going to happen for a few years. That determination isn't going to happen for a few years if that city decides to fight and go to trial. So it really comes down to who has the power, who has the guns. That is who makes international law, and domestic law for that matter. And so we can presume and we can act as if we have a system of laws that everyone must follow, but the practice is that is not the case. And so we see it time and time again, and we see it more so with this presidency than others. But if we look back, it's and I believe the claim that this administration has made, even the 45th presidential administration, was that just like Abraham Lincoln, I'm using these executive powers to do things that need to be done, the same way Abraham Lincoln used his executive powers to do the Emancipation Proclamation. And, there's a legal and logical argument for that. Obviously, I think there's a historical and factual significance that may differ, but that is what this administration is using to justify and has used to justify its actions.
Want to use executive order like Abraham Lincoln, only exactly the opposite. But I do understand the argument. I find it ironic because I feel like the Trump circle complained constantly about President Barack Obama's use of executive orders. And yet this president, I mean, I haven't seen the numbers, but it seems like he's got an executive order for every day of the week.
Oh yes, that is what he does. That is how he's doing it, and we should not be surprised. We should not be surprised. And the question is, what precedent does this set? And is this the new move going forward? Is this what all candidates are going to do going forward? Or is there something else that's going to happen? But I could see it, especially if the next president at some point. I'm not totally of the belief that Donald Trump will not get a third term. I don't. I recognize the great possibility that is, and so. But at some point, there will be a next president. It's just, will they come from that ilk and continue it?
Right.
Or
Will
will
it be
it just
J.D.
be like a
Vance?
one-off? Yes, or someone like that.
Yeah, I don't know that this is the template because executive orders can be overturned by the next guy or woman in office. But to your point, with this administration, they've done so much damage. By the time that's overturned by the courts, it's probably too late to fix whatever's been wrecked. You look at the international aid framework, for example, or the Department of Education, or the 300,000 plus Black women who have been fired. Do we get to put those genies back in the bottle, even if they are deemed later to be illegal?
Well, even if it does, the impact can't be, and the reparatory actions will likely be de minimis as it relates to the impact of the now and what happens. So, I mean, what's done is done, and what's being done will be done. You can't get those bombs back. You can't get those ships back. Even if Maduro got released today and said, just go on about your business, the fact that it happened at all is you can't take that back. And so, we see some things, but it's also, in my opinion, one of the things, one of those circumstances that have led to the international community and the global community taking the stances that it took. Now, it might not be a direct, like, hey, America, we're doing this to you, we're doing that. But when the world stood together and declared the crimes of the transatlantic slave trade, which I want everyone to be clear, is not just the United States of America that participated. It's the Americas almost in total, from, the U.S. down to Chile, wherever there are Black people, wherever there are descendants of Africans in the United States, in the Americas, North or South, the participation in the transatlantic slave trade was there. But for the world to come together and deem it the gravest crime against humanity, what we are going to see from that in future generations, because now that will be taught to the children of generations globally, I think it's going to be a great shift. I think it's the start of a great shift in the global structure and looking at the U.S. as the power that it once held.
Talking with attorney Jaaye Person Lynn, you're invited in at 800-920-1580 or hit us up on socials, KBLA 1580 on every platform. And then you can find me at Diprima Radio, DIPRIMA, and they radio. Keeping it moving on KBLA Talk 1580.
Thanks for starting your morning off with a voice that speaks truth to power and the powerless, getting to the heart of what matters most in our community. This is where authentic conversation meets real action. From breaking news and politics to culture and community solutions, this is where you hear perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. This is where we come together, get informed, and make change happen. You're inside First Things First with Dominique Diprima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Good morning, sunshine. You make my day.
Roger and Tracy saved over $18,400. Cynthia was recovering from a family tragedy and saved over $10,300. If you are drowning in debt, then call Debt Blue. Debt Blue is a professional debt negotiation firm with over 20 years of experience helping people pay back a fraction of what they owe. Learn how to cut your debt up to half or maybe more. Be debt-free in 24 to 48 months, even with bad credit. With an A+ rating from the BBB, you can rest easy knowing Debt Blue is going to deliver guaranteed debt reduction. Debt Blue offers a success guarantee guarantee you pay nothing unless your debt is reduced or completely resolved. That's right, you save money or it's free. Call now for significant debt relief and a free consultation. 800-200-8879. That's 800-200-8879. You don't have to declare bankruptcy. This program works if you owe $10,000, $20,000, or even $100,000 in debt. Call for your free consultation today. 800-200-8879. That's 800-200-8879.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance tech at a university, he knows ordering from multiple suppliers takes time away from keeping their arena up and running. That's why he counts on Grainger to get everything he needs, from lighting and HVAC parts to plumbing supplies, all in one place. And with fast, dependable delivery, he's stocked and ready for the next tip-off. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Why'd I go to the doctor? Working on the farm, my heart kept skipping a beat. I didn't think much of it, but my daughters made me get checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol-Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DePrima on First Things First.
And we're talking with attorney Jaaye Person Lynn of the Person Lynn Law Offices. So we're talking about international law and what appear to be highly illegal wars. And President Trump telling social media this morning, speaking to European countries, saying that, look, if you've got shortages because of the blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, that's your problem. He says, get your own oil. The fighting is raging on here. Iran set fire to a giant Kuwaiti oil tanker near Dubai. They were worried about leaks, but apparently officials in Dubai are saying that the fire was put out and there was no oil spill. We'll believe that when we really get the evidence, but that's what they're saying. And United Emirates says they are defending their country against missiles and drones fired by Iran. But basically, Trump is sword rattling at our European allies, saying the U.S. won't be there for you anymore. Get your own oil, basically giving them the middle finger. Back to your golden rule. What do you make of this?
Well, every great empire is crumbled from within. And the at some point, no matter how strong you are, you need some friends. And even going back to the UN vote, obviously the European Union is the U.S.'s friend enough to not go against it. And rather abstain as opposed to voting for it. And so when I look at that and look at what's going on and look at what was declared, I understand that America first mindset, and that sounds like what President Trump is doing with that mindset and with those statements. But the fact of the matter is, the U.S. isn't an island. It functions the way it functions because of its allies and friends on the global stage. So if now the European people, if there's a consensus among the European Union that the United States is no longer an ally, I think that's going to have a global impact that I don't think is going to be good for the United States. So, it might be high time for a lot of people to start looking elsewhere for housing and employment, because in the midst of all of this, we still see the rise of several countries using BRICS, the currency created by Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And so all of this is going on simultaneously. None of it is just happening on its own. And I think we have to be cognizant of that and aware of that, hey, there's consequences for action. You can take that action, you can take that stance, and if everything works out in your favor, then everything works out. But if it doesn't, you're going to end up much worse than you started off. And I think, in large part, we're in the beginning stages of that process of ending up worse than how we started.
Yeah, you're talking about Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, BRICS, which is actually now expanding. There's a bunch of new members, including Iran, and sort of the counterbalance to the Western hegemonic power that we've lived with both of our entire lifetimes. And that's a shift in the power balance of the entire globe. And I think that did play out to an extent with the UN vote on slavery being a crime against humanity and urging reparations, because, to your point, European countries abstained. They didn't support this, but the only to vote against it were Israel, the United States, and one other, which is escaping my mind right now.
Argentina.
Argentina, of course, which also has a fascist president.
Yeah, that's how the game goes. And I think there's a lot of things that go on, right? Somebody voted against the Civil Rights Act in the 60s, and in the moment got the support. Now they're not looked at as on the right side of history, and so we're entering into a global economy. My thesis in 2004, and yes, 22 years ago, I graduated from college. And it was on the impact of ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, on that region as we enter into globalization. And now we're 22 years later, and, I'm texting or communicating on WhatsApp in real time with people in South Africa regularly, right? This is globalization. This is what it looks like. People flying everywhere, people doing business everywhere. And so the need to go through just one avenue to get the resource you're looking for is no longer there. The world is expanding. And so through that, I think, and BRICS being probably the greatest example of that we have in real time, I think what's going on is telltale signs. And the current administration would be wise to not just bully through and think that's going to be enough as it has been in the past. The U.S. of 2026 is not the U.S. of 1996 in any regard.
Yeah, I think that's right. We only have a minute here till news, traffic, and sports. But I was really glad to hear you say that UN resolution on slavery marked a new era or a new balance of power. In your opinion, I know you tend to be whatever the opposite of hyperbolic is. And I felt like this is really significant. It felt like Africa, Ghana in this case, standing up for African Americans, just as China might stand up for Chinese Americans, even though we are not immigrants.
Yeah, and that is exactly what it was. And that is the spirit of Africa. I tell everyone during the 2010 World Cup, when Ghana was the last team, the entirety of the continent supported it. But when the U.S. was the last team, Mexico didn't jump on the U.S. bandwagon. Canada didn't support the U.S. because it's a different mindset. But that mindset doesn't just stay on the African borders. It goes to the diaspora. So whatever people hear about Africans don't like us, touch down on the continent and you'll see you were welcomed home.
Absolutely. Attorney Jaaye Person Lynn is with us. We've got news, traffic, and sports, then more, only right here.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to gear with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The White House says it's looking for a way to reopen Homeland Security. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says President Trump can't keep using executive orders to pay TSA workers.
Once again, President Trump is cleaning up their mess because he cares more about the American people than destructive, petty, partisan politics.
Democrats and ICE reforms remain at the center of the shutdown. The Supreme Court is taking up the case of a black Mississippi death row inmate who says racial bias tainted his trial. Attorneys argue prosecutors struck nearly every black juror before Terry Pitchford was sentenced to death. Although his friend fired the shot, he was under 18 and spared the death penalty. And Kali Uchis is hitting the road again. The singer just announced her For the Girls tour, kicking off May 23rd in Chicago and wrapping August 8th in Las Vegas. Tickets go on sale April 2nd. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Now is the time to save on an award-winning Nissan at the Nissan Now sales event, featuring the Rogue, Pathfinder, Frontier, and more. Don't wait. These offers are going fast. Shop your Southern California Nissan dealers and NissanUSA.com today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Lakers had an easy time with the Washington Wizards Monday night without Luka Doncic. The NBA scoring leader was at home serving a one-game suspension for getting his 16th technical foul this season. The Lakers beat the Wizards 120-101. A triple-double for LeBron, 21 points, 12 assists, and 10 rebounds. The Lakers are at home tonight against Cleveland. The Clippers are also at home tonight at the Intuit Dome in Inglewood. They take on Portland. The Clippers are going for their 6th straight win. The same teams in last year's Final Four in the NCAA Women's Basketball Tournament are back again this year. Texas and South Carolina will join UCLA and undefeated UConn in Phoenix. UCLA plays Texas Friday night. Texas is the only team to beat UCLA this season. The Bruins have won 29 straight since losing to Texas on November 26. More on this rematch throughout the week. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
This is a special alert to all Americans who own a vehicle with less than 200,000 miles with an auto warranty about to expire or with no warranty coverage at all. Due to a decline in the economy, CarShield is announcing a low-cost month-to-month vehicle protection plan that is now available to the public to save any driver out-of-pocket expenses on future auto repairs. Call now to find out how you can pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Pay almost nothing for covered auto repairs. An open phone line has been established for all drivers to call for a free quick quote. Call 800-478-6430 now. Drivers who are covered will not have to pay for covered repairs again. This protection plan is at an all-time low. Additionally, drivers who activate this vehicle protection today will also receive free roadside assistance, free towing, and car rental options at no additional cost. Call us for your free quick quote today. 800-478-6430. That's 800-478-6430. What do you have to lose? Call 800-478-6430. Again, 800-478-6430.
Small businesses are the heart of America. But you don't have to go it alone. As the nation's largest nonprofit resource of expert business mentoring, SCORE has helped millions of entrepreneurs build their businesses for free. Get the connections, education, and guidance you need with SCORE. We're ready to help. Find a mentor today at score.org.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
What if your rooftop could earn you money every year? With LADWP's Solar Rooftops program, you can get solar panels installed and maintained on your home at no cost and earn up to $900 a year. That's up to $18,000 over 20 years. There are no upfront costs, no credit checks, and no annual fees. Plus, you'll help power Los Angeles with clean local solar energy and reduce reliance on fossil fuels. Make your rooftop work for you. Apply today at ladwp.com/solar rooftops.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
And attorney Jaaye Person Lynn joins me. We are marking the angelversary of Nipsey Hussle on this day. And I just found out also Selena on this day. On top of that, it is Cesar Chavez's birthday, a state holiday now known as Farm Workers Day. I think it should be called United Farm Workers Day or Chicano and Filipino Labor Organizers Day or Dolores Huerta Day. But no, we went with Farmer Joe Day. So happy whatever it is day, attorney Jaaye Person Lynn.
Yes, happy we don't have court day. As it's one of those unique holidays where the judges and clerks are state employees. The prosecutors and public defenders are county employees. So they usually use days like this for trainings and whatnot. But the DAs and public defenders will be at the courthouse. It's just there will be nobody to preside over the trial. So that's why the trial that I'm in, that I've been in since January 20th, 2026, this year, over 2 months, spent all of Q1 in trial, is not taking place today because of the state holiday.
Well, thank you for spending your state holiday with us. What do you make of this Cesar Chavez controversy and the response to it? It feels like state of California pivoted in record time, changing the name of the holiday, and the quick response as far as taking down statues and changing the names of monuments and schools has been pretty shocking, actually, when you look at the fact that we're still trying to get stuff down from the Civil War.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show what could happen, right, when people take certain things seriously. But the reality is, I was surprised too, because, when the year started, March 31st was Cesar Chavez Day, and next time I looked up, it said court is closed tomorrow for Farm Workers Day. I was like, wow, that was fast. I'm not even sure what the actual allegations are or were. I've been encompassed in this trial. It's a special circumstance murder trial. And we're both, it's a unique place, not to get off topic, but both of the co-defendants have been convicted and the jury is still deliberating on my client. But so based on that, I heard something that the family was believing the accusers and standing by them, but I didn't know exactly what it is. And I don't know if there was an allegation of just, it seemed like something of a sexual nature, but I just have no idea exactly what those allegations are.
Well, I mean, yes, there are a couple of women who came forward and said that they were raped by Cesar Chavez. And then Dolores Huerta, who co-founded United Farm Workers with him and who is revered at 96 years old, corroborated those allegations and said that Cesar Chavez had pressured her into sex one time and then a second time had actually raped her in a car, and she was impregnated both times and sent those children to be raised with friends of hers, but not as her own or Cesar Chavez's children. And I think when this Huerta came out with her allegations, it really changed everything because although the timing of the New York Times article is suspect coming right before the holiday, when Dolores Huerta, the co-founder of UFW, gets up and says, Cesar Chavez raped me, everyone's going to listen to that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then you can certainly understand the swiftness of the response because there's not going to be any. Who else? You know, if this woman's 96, who else would be around at this point to cooperate or not? And then you also look at it like, what does it benefit her? Though I understand her silence over the years because in her mind, the movement for farm workers was more important and would have certainly been derailed had these allegations come out, for one. And two, she might not have been believed anyway in that time frame and with his stature. So, wow, that's something to hear. And I mean, and because these figures are like, whenever I would MC the white coat ceremony at the Charles Drew University Saturday Science Academy too, they always have the kids come up and speak as Cesar Chavez, as Martin Luther King, so on and so forth. And so now we're here. I do want to caution people from totally rejecting the work Cesar Chavez did based on his actions, because the two things can exist at one time. He could have been a sexual predator and done some amazing work for the farm workers. And so it's a complicated history of America, right? We're out here, we celebrate the 4th of July as a nation, but the enslaved Africans of that time were still enslaved on July 4th, 1776. And so it's part of that complicated history for America, and it's definitely not to excuse the enslavers or excuse Cesar Chavez's sexual perversions and sexual assaults and rape. But that doesn't change the fact that he still did some amazing work for those farm workers. It just shows that almost every aspect of America is going to have a taint to it. It's very few figures or circumstances in the history of the United States of America that's simply pure and just and right.
Yeah. I think it's a really important point about the work too, though, Attorney Jaaye Person Lynn, because we don't throw out George Washington. We don't throw out Thomas Jefferson, but I think we're quicker to erase the dichotomy of good that comes with the sin, the taint that you speak of when it comes to African American or Latino people in this country. We're quick to throw out the entire Cosby legacy or throw out the entire Cesar Chavez legacy and not look at what was accomplished. And again, I'm obviously not excusing his behavior. I feel like it should be Dolores Huerta Day. I feel like all those Latino kids that grew up looking up to Cesar Chavez are not going to get the same pride, the same role model at a Farm Workers Day. And it'll be Bob the Builder in 5 minutes. I mean, the erasure, the Farmer Joe, will have a blonde Lego figure representing Farm Workers Day. And I think preserving the spirit of that, which was about organizing Filipino and Latino farm workers who provide food for this entire nation, needs to be kept. And that's why I would advocate for Dolores Huerta Day or UFW Day, not just Farm Workers Day.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. And it's important to just tell the whole story. And the other thing that it's important, other reason why it's important to tell that story is as a cautionary tale. Like, absolute power at any level corrupts absolutely. So if you're feeling like you're powerful and you have this media behind you, you have the community behind you, you're meeting with the president or the Secretary of State, and they have your support, and you're dealing with a vulnerable part of the population, you have an extra duty to still maintain your integrity and your morals. And so to just erase the history, I don't think does justice to all of the other people that were in that fight, for one, and for two, it ceases the opportunity to teach the lesson that can come from that.
Yeah, it's a great point. Prester John 1697 in the YouTube chat says, "True, Dominique, are they going to remove George Washington from the dollar? Don't see that happening."
No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. He's going to stay on that dollar, that quarter. And the only reason why his birthday is no longer a holiday, which it might still be in California, because I remember when I was a kid, we got 2 days off in February. But it was just more holidays came about, and so that's how they merged them into President's Day. But the Washington Monument is not going to change. The Lincoln Memorial is not, none of these things, none of this history of the United States, which many people are proud of, despite what it meant, knowing that these were slave owners, knowing that these people violated human beings in the gravest of ways. These are the perpetrators of the gravest crime against humanity. But no, they will not be remembered as such in this land, at least not for some time.
Talking with attorney Jaaye Person Lynn and you at 800-920-1580. I'm Dominique DePrima for KBLA, Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
We're at Doolin's on Crenshaw. It's a special place where the neighborhood comes together. Got the fried chicken, the catfish, the candied yams, the mac and cheese. It's all delicious. I'm Isaac Bryan. I represent the Crenshaw District in the California State Legislature, and I'm supporting Tom Steyer for governor of California. California is under attack, and we need a fighter who's going to come in on day one and stand up for California values and push back. That person is Tom Steyer. Tom and I have been fighting together for the better part of a decade. Tom is the only candidate supported by smart justice because Tom has stood on the front lines of racial justice, economic justice, and true solidarity. Tom is the real deal. He's the only candidate in the race with a comprehensive plan to make the billionaires and the corporations pay their fair share so we can fund things like universal health care and education. He means what he says, and he does what we need. This is a moment when we've got to fight fire with fire, and I believe that fire is Tom Steyer.
Ad paid for by Steyer for Governor 2026. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The midterm elections are upon us. It is voting season once again. Common Cause's motto is fighting for the democracy we deserve. In service of that goal, Common Cause puts its state and national policy expertise, massive network of grassroots supporters, and nonpartisan approach into action to strengthen our democracy against the challenges we face today. They work at every level of government on priorities that impact each of our lives, like defending the right to vote, limiting big money's influence on our elections, holding public officials accountable, and more. Common Cause is a nonpartisan grassroots organization dedicated to upholding the core values of American democracy. They seek to empower all people to make their voices heard in the political process. This election may be the most important one ever. If you'd like to make a donation or volunteer in service to the Constitution, please visit commoncause.org. That's commoncause.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
We are, and we're talking with attorney Jaaye Person Lynn. Gas prices are through the roof, up $1 according to today's LA Times. And of course, that affects everything. You got to move the vegetables and fruits and frozen goods around. We do that mostly with trucks. When the gas prices go up, food prices go up. Airplane tickets right now are insanely expensive. And it doesn't look like there's any end in sight. What's your analysis of how this is playing out? I mean, obviously, it's the war in Iran that has destabilized prices, not just here in the United States, but globally, when we were already on an affordability cycle that was hurting consumers.
Well, I think if you go to the doctor for your annual checkup and the doctor says, hey, you got high blood pressure, you're pre-diabetic, you got to slow down on the salt, and you got to chill on the sugar, and you leave and you go get some fried chicken and add hot sauce to it, and go get some sweet potato pie and some cobbler afterwards, and that's your normal routine after you done already had bacon and eggs for breakfast, and then go to a steak dinner that night. I think you have to expect and understand that the consequences are there for you, and in this world, in this country, the signs of what's to come were there, and we continue eating the same ways, not exercising, and so we have to deal with the consequences. And I know there's several people, most listeners of this show, most people in our community that are like, I didn't want this, I didn't sign up for this, but you did because you voted, you participated in the process, and this is the result of the process. So if it's the overall system that you dislike, then you should read further in the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights, where the rights not expressed in the Constitution are reserved by the people, and realize that there's different steps you need to take, because continuing to do the same thing will get us right here where we are. And in the meantime, we just have to tighten up our budgets. There's no way around that. Everything will go up. The price of food will go up. In these times, entertainment is not readily available to us. Just going to the movies, where you might have had that extra $20 to buy that movie ticket, it now has to go into the tank so you can get to and from work and get your kids to and from school. And I see it. I mean, I swear, I'm like, the gas price went up, and it seems like the gas is burning faster. Or maybe that's just my mind playing tricks on me because I'm paying so much money. But you're seeing people who fill up once a week, going from $40 a week to $70, $60 and $70. And when we're talking about 52 weeks in a year, we're talking about $1,000, $1,500, sometimes $2,000 more just at the gas tank. And we're gonna have to make the cuts. That's what I think. People have to, strive for what should be, but live in a space of what is. And this is what is right now. And until we find a way around it, we have to understand it. And I remember when, 9/11 happened and the gas prices first went up and skyrocketed to like $3 from $1. And then it went up a little more. And I remember, I forget who it was, but somebody was like, man, if it just stays at 3, I'd be happy. And I'm still thinking like, man, 3 is real high. I can't do no 3. But now, boy, I would love to see $3. I would love to see it. So the other thing about this, if it stays this way for too long, then, $5 isn't going to seem that bad when
Right.
$6 is been there for a year. And so we can just expect it to stay high. So we just have to be aware of that, be cognizant of that. And, this is the time to not make those unnecessary trips, I guess.
Yeah, tightening the budgets is a reality. And you said a lot of people are claiming, like, I didn't vote for this, and really they did. I think the president ran on a lot of the crazy things that he is doing, what I would consider crazy, right? The removal of our rights for women, the anti-blackness, the dismantling of the Department of Education, getting rid of international aid. I mean, a lot of these things, you could see them in Project 2025. You could hear them in his rhetoric. A war with Iran, I don't think he did run on that. I don't think he did run on these high prices. In fact, he said everything was going to be cheaper. And so this is where we're starting to see the revolt with the MAGA base, that he's abandoned the America First concept and that he is being bossed and bought by Israel and other foreign interests and is not putting the people of the United States first. Do you think that's significant?
I do think it's significant because I'll never forget the chant of the Charlottesville tiki tortures. That chant was, Jews will not replace us. Jews will not replace us. And those are the same MAGA people. And so to now have pundit after pundit and conservative blogger after conservative blogger saying that we are doing this for Israel, not for America, that's really going to strike a chord with those people. And where that goes, I don't know because, I'm not in that movement. But I can certainly say that it is going to have an impact on one end. But on the other end, I do honestly believe that Donald Trump, Hegseth, and the rest of them have convinced themselves that what they are doing is for America in the long run. I do believe they've convinced themselves of that. I'm not sure that, it's based on logical conclusions, but I do believe that is what they actually believe and why and why they're happy to do what they're doing.
I think it's greed, but maybe you're right. Attorney Jaaye Person Lynn, thank you for taking your day off and spending an hour of it with us. Remind folks how to find you.
You can find me at Lincoln Lawyer LA on Instagram, Jaaye Person Lynn on Facebook, and hopefully between 6 and 8 at some point on Dominique DePrima's show here on KBLA. As whenever she'll have me, I'd love to be here.
Always love to have you. We are going to be talking with iconic comic J. Anthony Brown. A great conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. The White House says it's looking for a way to reopen Homeland Security. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says President Trump can't keep using executive orders to pay TSA workers.
Once again, President Trump is cleaning up their mess because he cares more about the American people than destructive, petty, partisan politics.
Democrats and ICE reforms remain at the center of the shutdown. The Supreme Court is taking up the case of a black Mississippi death row inmate who says racial bias tainted his trial. Attorneys argue prosecutors struck nearly every black juror before Terry Pitchford was sentenced to death. Although his friend fired the shot, he was under 18 and spared the death penalty. And Kali Uchis is hitting the road again. The singer just announced her For the Girls tour kicking off May 23rd in Chicago.